If you've ever looked at a CAD file, imagined it cutting clean lines in hardwood, then stared at your wallet and thought, maybe I'm just buying a fancy hobby robot, you're not alone. The fear of spending hard-earned cash on a machine that sounds impressive on paper but ends up gathering dust is real, especially when you're juggling a weekend woodworking gig, a few prototype parts for a small business, and maybe the occasional hobbyist experiment with carbon fiber panels. The question you keep hearing in the back of your mind is, will this desktop CNC actually do what I need without turning my garage into a maintenance nightmare? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In the next few minutes I'm going to walk through what the FoxAlien X Ultra Core promises, what it actually delivers in everyday use, and who should consider pulling the trigger versus who might be better off looking elsewhere. I've spent the last couple of weeks watching tutorial videos, digging through the specs, and chatting with a few owners on online maker forums, so let's get into the nitty-gritty. First off, the X Ultra Core's biggest selling point is the 17x17 active work area. For a benchtop machine, that's a surprisingly generous envelope. If you're planning to carve a set of coasters, cut interlocking puzzle pieces, or even mill a small aluminum bracket, you'll find the space more than adequate. The extra height, just under 5 cm, gives you a little breathing room for thicker wood or light-duty aluminum without constantly adjusting the axes. In real-world terms, you can set up a piece of inch Baltic birch, secure it with the supplied clamps, and run a full-size logo engraving in one go, rather than having to split the job into multiple passes. What really differentiates the FoxAlien from a lot of entry-level routers is the closed-loop stepper system. The 2.6 Nm NEMA 23 motors, paired with 6086mm feedback encoders, claim to correct any missteps on the fly. In practice, that translates to a noticeable reduction in ghosting or slight slips that can ruin a delicate engraving. I've seen a maker on YouTube demonstrate a tightly toleranced gear housing 0.1 mm clearance, and the machine held its position without any audible stutter. For woodworkers who have been burned by machines that lose steps midway through a cut, that level of feedback can be a peace-of-mind feature worth the higher price tag. Now, let's talk about the linear motion. FoxAlien uses 16mm ball screws on both the X and Y axes, plus a 12mm ball screw on Z. Ball screws are a step up from the more common lead screws you find on budget kits, providing smoother travel and less backlash. The added HG15 linear guide rails are also a subtle but meaningful upgrade. Those rails keep the gantry steadier when you're pushing the feed rate up during a faster rough cut pass. In day-to-day use, this means the machine feels solid. You won't get the wobble you sometimes see when the carriage slides over cheap aluminum extrusions. The trade-off is that those components add a bit of heft, so moving the machine from a workbench to a storage shelf isn't a one-handed effort, but the rigidity you gain is what makes it capable of handling softer aluminum and thin carbon fiber sheets without shattering. One of the practical strengths often overlooked is the dual-layer collision protection. The X Ultra Core uses industrial-grade inductive limit switches on every axis, and they're wired in a way that the machine will stop instantly if any axis reaches its travel limit or detects a sudden obstruction. For new users, that's a huge safety net. You can run a test cut, and if the bit catches on an unexpected knot in the wood, the machine will halt before the motor burns out. That safety net also reduces the risk of having to replace a spindle bearing after a mishap, a cost that can quickly add up. Speaking of spindles, the router's open spindle ecosystem gives you the freedom to choose your own cutting head. FoxAlien ships with a standard 65mm router mount that can accommodate most off-the-shelf routers, and they even offer a 1.5 kW VFD spin-up unit for those who need extra torque. If you already own a decent router, you can simply bolt it onto the machine and skip the extra spend. On the flip side, if you're buying this as a complete package with no existing spindle, you'll need to budget for a decent router and possibly a collet set. It's not a deal breaker, but it's a cost you should plan for. So, who should buy the FoxAlien X Ultra Core? If you're a hobbyist who already has some experience with CNC routing, say, you've done a few simple PCB or wooden sign projects and you want to step up to a larger work envelope while also gaining the reliability of closed-loop motors, this is a solid match. Small business owners who need to produce low-volume metal parts, such as brackets or custom connectors, will appreciate the rigid ball screw system and the ability to swap spindles for harder materials. The machine also shines for educators or maker spaces that need a relatively